everybody. This week we're looking at how to keep the fights clean after. So again, thank you so much for all the questions you've been sending in. I love and I love people and couples. And it's really been a fun way to connect with you all out there, those that I don't get to do my personal one-on-one coaching with. So thanks for reaching out and keep sending those questions in. So today's question, how long do I have to give my husband space after a fight? He's ignoring me. Should I text him sorry for what I did and give him space? And for how long? I'm afraid that he'll blame me for everything. So there's several elements in there, and I've sat here for the last half an hour taking notes and thoughts on what I wanted to share with you and what tips and blogs I can point you towards. The overall, of course, is just keep experimenting and feeling into the moment and what's happening, but I'm going to give you a lot more specifics than just that, right? So I understand. Let me first address the giving space. I so understand that. You may have heard of either the hurricane and the turtle before or the anxious and avoidant. We all have different styles of how we engaged. There was a blog we did a couple weeks ago on differentiation and personality types and how helpful it is to really understand yourself and your beloved and the dynamics between the two of you, because we are not all the same. How could he think that? Why would he do that? It's because he thinks differently. For example, in the hurricane turtle dynamic, and that comes from, I believe that's Harville Hendricks and Helen Hunt. So the hurricane says, if you cared about me, you'd resolve this right now. And the turtle's like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. I can't even talk to you. I just need my own space. My husband used to say when we'd get into conflicts, I feel like my head's going to explode. So he really needs some quiet time. And it took me a while to not just understand, but to respect, and not just to respect, but to embrace his patterns and what he resets and restores him, and my own patterns, and for us to both understand our own and each other's. You probably have heard me say this before. It's my favorite tool these days, and I'm going to come back to it again and again and again. Start with ownership, compassion, and creativity. We've got a great blog, the OCC. If you just go to forbetter.love and to the content page and just in the search type in ownership, compassion, and creativity, it'll pull that blog up for you. And when you come from that place, because you mentioned blame, and anytime there's blame, there's no opportunity. There's the invitation then is to go into defending. When you take ownership, it's disarming. So even if, you weren't the one at fault, this isn't about fault, not in relationship. It's about how do we hold that all is well, but let's have this be even better if, and let's move forward together. So as a go-to, it's my favorite tool, ownership, compassion, and creativity. It could be something even really small, but take ownership of something, express compassion. I can see that this issue has been confronting for you too, and you've needed some space, and I can respect that and have support for whatever you need in your own way and time. And then creativity, you might say something like, I'm not sure how to do this, but I know we can do better at this next time. So you're in a partnership now, you're engaging with your beloved. Now, I jumped into my one go-to tip, but the reality is that timing is everything. So not only are we different people and we want to be sensitive to that, we want to be sensitive to timing. If you looked at any of our blogs or our tools, all our content is divided into how to keep the fights clean and how to keep the sex dirty. So we have a section for what to do before, what to do as it starts, what to do in the heat of it during, and what to do after. This is very much what to do after a fight. And if you engage too soon while they're still upset and all of that, and you're not, it's the coals of that fire are still too hot, then you want to actually give that some space and some time. Don't make space a bad thing. I know I certainly did. I have abandonment issues. And so that's where the hurricane comes from. If you cared, you do this. And so I had to learn that I chose a beloved, even if it was subconsciously, that was the opposite in that way, just so I could have those issues come up, those abandonment triggers come up, and I could heal them and soothe them and not be looking externally for that to happen. So timing is everything, and consent is required. Always, always, always check in with your beloved. I didn't like how that went between us, and I'm really feeling distant. I'd love to feel connected with you again. Are you up for going for a walk? Are you up for talking about it? Or when would you be willing to talk about it? I really love to build that intimacy between us again. But say it as an invitation and what you would like, not what you fear and what you don't like. Okay, let's see. Yes, love this one. I was just working on a magnet today for some of these top tips, so you can put them on the fridge. I don't like to work hard. I like to work smart. And I always say, pick your prompts, pick your prompts, pick your prompts, set alarms, put things on your screensavers. And in this case, magnets on your refrigerator. So this message is first restore connection, then resolve conflict. Most couples, when they're in conflict and triggered, they want to go in and resolve the issue itself, but you're positioned as adversaries. So first make sure that you take some action to be aligned as partners again, aligned as adventurers in resolving this conflict. That the problem isn't a problem. The problem is actually a path to the next level of connection and intimacy between the two of you. So first restore connection, then resolve conflict. And there's a lot of different ways to restore connection. I'm going to give you a few of those. One is eye gazing. I do love that one. Hey, can we just not talk and just be with each other for 30 seconds? I know that might feel weird or awkward. I just want to connect with you. I just miss you. Right? An invitation. All right, next tip. Blaming leads to defending. So when you're blaming and defending, someone is going to collapse. And when you're looking for growth and development and doing things better the next time, autonomy, a sense of freedom and choice is absolutely required. And when you blame, someone doesn't feel like they have a sense of freedom and self-direction. They feel often like they're being cornered, pushed into a corner, and they come out defending. So avoid any of the blame. Now, if your beloved shows up and is blaming you, again, go to the ownership, compassion, and creativity. Don't push back. Say, this is what I can take ownership for, and this is where I have compassion for you, and this is what I can suggest as a creative way of moving forward. Any part of my experience that you can see some compassion for, or do you have any suggestions on how we can move forward creatively? Saying sorry. When is it healthy? When is it not healthy? When are you being a doormat and when are you being a darling? So being the one to forgive and to reach out and to initiate, especially if a lot of women are you watching, not in all cases, but in many cases, that's how we have, it's either our nature or how we have been socialized and grow up. But sometimes, we can do too much cleanup, trying to direct and the relationship into the level of intimacy that we want. And then we end up feeling like a martyr, like we're doing too much and they're not doing their part. Just remember that, again, we're all very, very different people. We're doing different things in different ways. Everybody wants to be happy. We just have to find the path that they're inspired to, right? You can't push a rope. Now, I don't want you to pull either, but you do want to inspire. And so the pull is your invitation. It's so enticing. It's irresistible. The 4 pillars of an awesome apology. So you may or may not know that here at For Better Love, we have 3 seasons a year: the season of play, the season of peace, and the season of passion. Well, once in the season of peace, Raj and I decided that we were being a bit stingy with our apologies, only apologizing when we saw we were clearly at fault. And we just wanted to get better at apologizing and just dropping the ego around it. So we started practicing this tool that we created called the 4 pillars of an awesome apology. I'm going to swear a little bit here, but it's just part of it. Hopefully that is fine for you. The 4 pillars of an awesome apology is: I'm sorry. I fucked up. Please forgive me. What can I do? Now, for some people, that just has their ego freaking out. I'm not saying I fucked up. It's their problem. They did it. I didn't do anything. And believe me, I get it. I have my own victimized, righteous moments, and you might even be justified. It's human. It's even understandable, as I said, even justified, but is it actually helpful or not? And I tend to focus on what's helpful and just getting good at apologizing. To me, if there's conflict, then both people should have some ownership there. It's not like you're at fault, but it's whoopsie daisy. How'd we get here? We got here together, and let's us together get us out. Now, how about approaching your beloved when you're afraid that they're just withholding and pulling away? Don't make it about you. Just remember that's their style. And most likely you've chosen someone who's the opposite style than your own. So it's going to feel really uncomfortable, but it's okay. It's what they need. And you don't want to push to resolve an issue until they're ready. Trying to talk about something when they're not ready can just backfire and blow up in your face. But I get it. You don't want to just step over it and ignore it. You want things to get better. So there is a dance in between those. Now, I have another tip here on the what can I do caress that kind of goes along with the 4 pillars of an awesome apology. And Raj and I came up with this one day. I was really upset with him. We'd had an argument, and I was at the sink doing dishes. And he just came up to me and he put his arms around my belly from behind and he leaned in, kind of nuzzled right here in my neck. And he just whispered into my ear, "What can I do?" Now, it wasn't accepting blame. It wasn't putting blame on me. It was just acknowledging we're distant right now. We're disconnected. And I don't want that to be the case. What can I do? Now, you can do that with your beloved. It's important to develop that trust so that when one person says, "What can I do?" you can stop being a jerk. When someone offers an olive branch, you want to be sure that you receive it, right? And of course, you can't control your beloved. You can only control yourself. So focus over here and see the difference that it makes over there rather than trying to change and focus on any behavior over there, because that's a bit of a fool's errand or a lot of a fool's errand. Pretty frustrating. Argument even better if tool. Okay, so let's say you go to your beloved and you say, "I know that was not such a great time, great interaction between us, and there's distance between us right now. I'd really love us to come back together and not just move past this argument, but actually move forward. How can we take this breakdown and turn it into a breakthrough?" Look at the social media post this week. I wrote the blog, and you might just want to save that. When you're on that URL, just go into save and save to my homepage or my home screen on your phone, and then you'll have it there and available when you need it. So the argument even better ifing tool has you first name your argument. What was the argument? The second part is to ask yourselves and to score, not each individually, but how did you as a couple do? So if one person did well and the other didn't, what's the combo between the two? It's how did you two do together, not each person. And naming it, by the way, kind of just gives it some distance. It's not, the you're aware of that a dynamic is happening and it's a pattern usually, as opposed to getting stuck in the moment of that particular circumstance or argument. So first name your argument. Next, you want to ask and score, how often does this happen, with a all the time being a 1, and it never happens as being a 10, because we're going for 10s. That's what we want, right? Think of the Olympics, 10 for this argument. All right, the second question that you're scoring is, how extreme did it get? Was it a blip? Was it, maybe it even lasted a while, but you didn't end up yelling, nothing was thrown. A 10 would be, we did pretty well with that. Actually, we had great communication, even though it was a terrible, topic. Or a 1, oh my gosh, the neighbors called the cops. We were screaming and throwing things so much. We don't want that, right? All right, the next question that you score is, how long did it last? Well, it was 5 minutes. It got intense. It was terrible, but only lasted 5 minutes. The next question that you would ask, not second, but next, is, did you use any tools? Oh, yeah, nonviolent communication, eye gazing, the OCC. We were using tools like tool ninjas. Or is it like, tools, what tools? I was pissed and I let him have it. And then lastly is, did you learn any lessons? And when couples do a session with me, just the fact they're doing the session and we're doing an argument even better ifing, they usually get a 10 on that one, unless they're resisting in any way. But if you're doing this on your own, then you may score that a little bit differently. You want to make sure that if you're doing the exercise, give yourself credit for that, but actually really look at what are the lessons being learned and how can you do better next time, right? So if you average up your score and you got a 4.3, then set a goal of getting at least a 5 or maybe a 7 next time on your argument. Also, when you look at the scores of what was low, that gives you some specifics on where you can take action to have it be better in the future. Okay, so that's the argument even better ifing tool, and look out this week on social media for some more details on that one. Super helpful tool. Okay, last couple of thoughts here. One, just experiment. Just keep exploring, keep trying. Well, that didn't work. Let me try something else. Thomas Edison is said to have created electricity, and he was being interviewed in the newspaper, and they asked him how he felt about being a failure. And he said, I haven't failed. I've discovered 10,000 things that don't create electricity. So see this as a journey. Keep experimenting and exploring and finding out what works. Ask your beloved, hey, I notice when we're in conflict, you tend to need to take some time to yourself. Is there anything that I could say to you, or that you need to hear, or that we could do as a process to come back together? So just keep experimenting, interviewing your beloved and asking them and seeing what works. Now beware, the olive branches when you're reaching out may not be accepted. That is a big red flag. You want to practice and start talking about that. What do we do when one person apologizes and if we're still really mad? How do we take the step for them, towards them? John Gottman, that's one of the pieces of his research from the Love Lab. He's been doing this 45 years. And he has said that it's okay if you don't fight and it's okay if you do fight. The big problem is if you fight and someone apologizes and offers an olive branch and the other person doesn't receive it. So if that's an issue, then let's talk about that as the particular issue, and really get good at extending and receiving olive branches. And it's okay if you're not ready to receive it, but to take the ownership and to embrace the peace that they have given you and look for and declare what those next steps might be. Okay, so that is it for this week on how to keep the fights clean after, what to do after an argument to reconnect, to come back together, and to not just have it be something you get past, but actually something that you can use to move forward. One of my favorite quotes is around this is, experience is expensive. Just be sure you get what you paid for. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you all next week. Keep sending in your questions. Bye.